Hello, Leyden family. This is Superintendent Dr. Nick Poliak. This evening, our team presented to the Board of Education an amended plan and approach to the start of the 2020-2021 school year. I apologize in advance for the length of this video presentation, but my intention is to be both fully transparent and comprehensive in explaining our plan and the thinking behind it. As you can see from the title of these slides, we are moving to a fully remote e-learning approach at the start of this year. However, we've made significant changes to the remote plan to ensure an enhanced student experience when compared to what we did at the end of last year. This was a hard decision, but you can trust me when I say that we spent countless hours analyzing each scenario that you see on this slide. I'd like to start by being very candid and honest. Those of you who know me well also know that I haven't been sleeping well since March 13th of 2020. That was the last day that our students were in attendance at Leyden last year. I wake up nearly every day at 3 a.m. with my mind spinning about our students, our staff, our processes, and our next steps. Some days I can fall back asleep, and other days I just get up and head into work. Only in the past couple days have I realized that I might actually be going through the grieving process this whole time. What I've been grieving is the loss of so many parts of what makes Leyden an amazing place. It's the loss of our bus drivers, crossing guards, and security staff welcoming our kids with a smile and a hello in the morning. It's the loss of our kids being taught and mentored by a teaching staff and support staff that is second to none. It's the loss of seeing our kids find a home in fine arts programs and athletic programs. And it's the loss of seeing our kids engaged in community service, making the world a better place. When we talk about this virus and this pandemic, we often focus on the sickness and the horrific loss of lives. It's also resulted in the loss of our normalcy and how much of the magic that happens in these very special high schools. If I'm being honest with myself, I've probably known for a while that a fully remote start to the year was a strong possibility. But I've been fighting myself through these stages of grief on behalf of our kids and our community. I've been holding onto our 50% model and our 25% model with the hope of seeing some of these pictures come to life next month. For the sake of our students and our staff, we finally needed to move on to the acceptance phase and be okay starting remotely for a period of time. I don't like this decision, not at all. However, an enhanced remote learning experience is what's best for the kids at this time. So having said all that, I will walk you through where we are as of today and what we can expect moving forward. As I've said before, we are currently in phase 4 of the governor's Restore Illinois plan. The governor has now separated the state into 11 regions as we move through these stages. The Leyden community falls into Region 10, which contains all of suburban Cook County. While we are allowed to reopen schools in a limited capacity under this phase, I'll be explaining why current trends, local data, and evolving research are pointing us towards starting remotely next month. In all that we do, our primary focus remains on two things: the safety and wellness of our students and the staff, and the continuity of education for our kids and community. Over the past months, we've built a robust system of protocols and supports to these ends. We've followed all state and national guidelines to mitigate risk to the greatest degree possible, knowing that we can never fully eliminate risk. This work has not been wasted. It will simply be further refined and eventually put into practice as we transition students back into the building at a later date. Throughout the summer, we've had 4 working groups with many stakeholders working on our local guidelines for this school year. As we push into the final stretch, all of their work will be compiled into a reopening guide that we will share with the Leyden community. Again, in the interest of transparency, you'll be able to see our protocols and our approaches to personal protective equipment, social distancing, grading, student and family supports, and much more. We'll also be updating and adding to our frequently asked questions document on our website so that it reflects the most current answers we have for all of you. So what will remote learning look like, and how will it be different this fall as compared to what students experienced in the spring? First of all grades will count. Last year, the state instituted a do no harm mentality where kids' grades could not be lowered. This resulted in vast amounts of students disengaging. That is not an option this year, as all grades will count. As you'll see in the future slides, we'll be changing our instructional approach and model so that students do not have to focus on 7 classes at a time. We're going to narrow their focus each quarter, and all teachers will take a common approach for sharing lessons and expectations on Schoology, our learning management system. This period of remote learning, however long it might last, will feature both fully online lessons and live synchronous experiences with teachers and classmates. Teachers, counselors, and social workers will be available to offer virtual office hours, conversations, and support. Eventually, the plan is that this model will transition to our 25% or 50% version, where we can start bringing students and staff back into the building under strict protocols to allow for as much face-to-face instruction as possible. As we make sure to prioritize the health and wellness of our community, we feel as though we have a lot of questions for how we could approach school. None of them are anywhere near what we want to do, which is go back to normal. However, we feel we've landed on the best possible option for our kids and our community, and this is based on the help and guidance from all of you. We held focus groups at the end of last year to learn what worked and what didn't work in the spring. We developed and refined our plan by surveying staff members and families. We used every guidance document from the State Board of Education, the Illinois Department of Public Health, and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. We built a plan that allows us to flexibly scale from remote learning to 25% to 50% to 100% attendance as possible throughout the year. When we look back to the spring, teaching and learning changed very abruptly. I already mentioned the grading issues, but all of us were caught off guard, and we made the very best of a difficult situation. Because of our experience with e-learning days since 2015, the Leyden staff and students were much more prepared and resilient than many other school districts across the state. As we process the feedback we've gotten from all of you, here are a few key takeaways. Number 1, small group, real-time, synchronous experiences were most effective for connections between students and teachers. Now, when I say synchronous, I'm referring to classes that meet face-to-face, whether virtually or in person, as opposed to asynchronous, where students participate and complete activities on their own time. When we transitioned to A and B days, students were more successful when they were able to focus on fewer subjects at a time in this remote format. As of last Friday, over 1/3 of our families responded to the survey we sent out, and 27.4% of parents said they were not planning to send their kids back to school at that point. If that percentage were to hold, that would mean that over 900 students would be impacted. When the Teachers Professional Association surveyed them, 45% preferred a fully remote start, 31% preferred having half the kids in the building, and 24% preferred having 1/4 of the kids in the building. We took all that information, and next we looked to the Illinois Department of Public Health to see what's actually happening in our communities. Each data point you see on this page reflects a different zip code, with some or all of those students coming to Leyden. The numbers were up to date as of July 20th at dph.illinois.gov. These percentages reflect the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases divided by the total tests given to residents in those zip codes to come up with an overall positivity rate. As you can see, every one of our numbers is higher than both the state average and the entirety of Cook County. Now, when you look at the most recent 5-day averages, the positivity rates are significantly lower, but they are in the process of creeping back up over the past few days and weeks. These are the numbers and trends we must be aware of and we must consider. It doesn't take much research to see that the science and the trends around this virus are constantly evolving. These are just several examples of headlines from the past few days that speak specifically to trends on cases with teenagers around the country and around the world. We're seeing what happens when other schools hold athletic camps and practices. We're seeing that just this past Wednesday, Illinois had more cases than in any one day since the month of June. We're even hearing that we should no longer use N95 masks with exhalation valves because they don't stop the spread of the virus from the person wearing it. I don't mean to scare anyone with this information. Actually, I do believe that our schools will be some of the safest places for kids to be when we do begin to transition back to in-person learning this year. We're working with air quality consultants. We're providing additional training for our maintenance and custodial staff. We've secured cleaning supplies and personal protective equipment, and we've put daily and weekly cleaning and disinfection protocols into place. Given all that information and all this preparation, we need to accept the fact that whether in person or remote, we must approach this time period with a new instructional paradigm. Even when we're able to get students back in the buildings, the majority of learning will still be happening online for the foreseeable future. So we need to reimagine how we teach, how we assess learning, and ultimately how kids learn. We need to know that the very best version of ourselves is when our kids are in school every day with our amazing teachers and support staff. Until we can get back to that point, we're going to come together and maximize the situation we've been given. So let's talk about this redesign. Earlier this summer, I presented an approach where students would rotate through A and B days, taking 6 classes at a time, with physical education courses being run virtually due to the state guidelines. We are amending and simplifying that plan based on everything I just explained and moving to what we're calling the Block 3 plus PE approach this year, which allows us to implement an instructional model that promotes the safety and wellness of our students while providing equitable learning opportunities and maximizing engagement. Students will take 3 courses at a time each quarter, but they will take them in a block format. Instead of taking classes for the equivalent of 45 minutes per day, they will focus on those 3 courses for the equivalent of 90 minutes per day. This will allow them to complete a semester's worth of work in those courses over 9 weeks. Then, during the second quarter, they will take their other 3 courses, with PE running virtually as a common daily experience throughout the year. This block approach will be maintained all year, and we can flexibly use this approach when fully remote or when we bring back 25%, 50%, or 100% of our students at a time. I hope this graphic helps you understand the design, where students will only be focusing on 3 classes at a time in addition to their PE, health, or driver's education course. Students will focus on periods 1, 2, and 3 during first quarter and during third quarter. Then in the second and fourth quarters, they'll be focusing on periods 4, 5, and 6. At the end of the year, they will still end up with the same number of credits as in a normal year. We are merely simplifying their focus because of how difficult it can be to manage 7 online courses at the same time. The next question is, what happens when we're able to scale up to our 25% attendance model? This is what the schedule could look like with our students split up into their 4 house teams. Team A would attend on Mondays, Team B would attend on Tuesdays, the building would stay closed on Wednesday for cleaning. Team C would attend on Thursdays, and Team D would attend on Fridays. The school day would be limited to 3 75-minute block courses that would allow students to pick up a lunch and leave around noon. You can also see some time slots later in the day on Wednesdays that will allow for synchronous time slots for teachers to meet with students online. Please note that these are possible times. We have not set actual times yet. In the 25% model, students will receive that 1 in-person lesson per class per week, in addition to 4 online lessons through Schoology. In this model, school buses would have approximately 10 to 15 kids per run, and classrooms would have 8 or less students at a time. When we're able to move to our 50% model, we will combine house teams A and B and house teams C and D. This model allows students to come to school twice per week for in-seat lessons, in addition to 3 online lessons through Schoology. In this model, bus runs would increase to about 20 to 30 students per run, with approximately 15 students or less per classroom. Last year, like school districts everywhere, we had kids fall through the cracks. In some cases, students access their online work very rarely or not at all in the spring. We simply cannot let that happen again. In this model, students have fewer courses to focus on at a time and increased opportunities for feedback. Research supports the block model for improving course completion and GPA. This is a flexible model that is designed to increase focus, feedback, and relationships. It helps to conceptualize what a student's experience might look like. A freshman might take algebra, English, and biology first quarter, along with his or her PE. Then in second quarter, that student would continue with PE, but switch to global studies, Spanish 2, and digital literacy. In some ways, this is how colleges operate. It's also how summer school courses are conducted. Similarly, you can see what a senior student's course load might look like. We know that there are challenges that exist in this model, especially with continuity of content, and we'll likely need to consider some supports to help bridge the preparation for AP exams and other courses. Even while we're operating remotely, we feel that our buildings are safe places to be. We know that some students would prefer to come to use the school district's internet, to have a quiet place to work, or to just maintain routine in their day. With that in mind, we'll be creating a sign-up process for students who would like to do this so that we can plan supervision and busing accordingly. With students being either fully remote or mostly remote during the year, that means that they are much more free during the day to connect with our counselors or our social workers via phone or via video chats. We want to maximize those contacts to support the social emotional health of our students. As soon as we move to our 25% or our 50% model, we'll be running some specific programs, either 4 days a week or on modified schedules. Those programs include Life High School, the Bridge program, the Transition program, and our English Learner program Level 1. When that time comes, those families will be contacted directly with specific details. We'll also continue to provide hotspots to families who need them for internet, and we'll have technology support available at the high schools should issues arise. We feel that there are many positives that come from a shift to this model for the 2020-2021 school year. We've already talked about many of these points. It allows us to provide a more consistent experience, and it allows us to engage more regularly for feedback with our students. Providing meals on a daily basis remains a top priority for us moving forward. We will continue to distribute meals between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. daily at both high schools and at our current community locations. The state guidance may be shifting to where we have to identify which Leyden students are receiving the meals, but we will address those processes as necessary. When our students are able to return to school, we will be providing grab-and-go lunches that also include a breakfast for the following morning. There are a few big points that we are watching and waiting on. As of today, we've not heard a ruling from the IHSA about what will happen with sports in the fall or for the upcoming year. Earlier today, the Illinois State Board of Education released a new 103-page guidance document regarding remote learning. We may need to make some amendments to our plan based on what that document contains. We're also closely watching to see what the governor might do with the 11 regions in the state and the 5 possible phases. Even though you've made it through this incredibly long video, and thank you for that, by the way, we know you're going to have many more questions. We will be updating our FAQ document on the website to reflect these changes, as well as some additional points of clarity. We will also be scheduling multiple online town halls for students, staff, and parents to hear directly from our building and district administrators. Please watch for those invitations for meetings over the next week. Finally, we know that we need to remain flexible. As of today, we believe this will be our approach on August 17th when students start up again. We also know that we may need to monitor and refine our plan. As necessary, we will continue to provide you with updates. So thank you again for your patience and for your partnership. Nobody wants to get back to normal more than us. I look forward to the day where the full power and experience of our comprehensive high schools is back to 100%. In the meantime, we're doing our very best to uphold our priorities of safety and wellness and the continuity of education. I look forward to seeing many of you at the virtual town hall meetings. Until then, take care, and thanks again for watching.